It's a Texas weather discussion video for Tuesday, the 9th of July. I'm Donovan Neal. Our weather for the rest of the week should remain mostly calm, sunny, and hot and humid once again this week. But our weather for the weekend and for early parts of next week is very dependent on how a tropical disturbance in southern Florida behaves. So here's the upper air map across the continent. You can see we have the main mid-latitude westerlies and main trough out to the northwest. Got a ridge parked over south central and southeastern U.S. And of course we have that high over the western Atlantic that will play a key factor of how this disturbance will behave. We'll get to that in just a second. We'll take a look at the visible satellite view cumulus clouds across the state today. This afternoon, and we'll see more of those dissipate by this evening as it gets hotter. Temperature is early this morning. We're in the mid 80s already, but we're going to be in the upper 90s later this afternoon, and it's going to be hot because there's a heat advisory in effect for much of north central and central Texas and some of the surrounding states, and that goes until Wednesday evening, where heat indices could be around 100 to 110 degrees across the board. So that's why that heat advisory is in effect. So it's going to be very, very hot for the next 48 hours. Convective outlooks may severe weather risk up to the north near Nebraska and South Dakota and parts of Wyoming. Day 2, risk of severe storms near the Great Lakes, near Green Bay, Milwaukee, Chicago, Peoria, and Detroit, some places like that. And on day 3, we have a marginal risk out in the northeast. And note we have a marginal risk for our deep south Gulf coast, where they could see from that disturbance, they could see a potential for a brief tornado or two, or maybe even a water spout. But we'll get to that in just a second. This is the average rainfall for the next 7 days, valid through Tuesday morning of next week. Now, keep in mind, this will definitely change once this thing fully develops. But obviously, you can see the main window for rain is the extreme eastern Texas to Louisiana. But down here in our situation for North Texas, we could see around anywhere from an inch to around 2 or 3 inches of rain. Your rain amounts can vary, but of course the main impact from this thing, it could see are up to 10 inches for near New Orleans and the southwestern Louisiana corridor. It could see anywhere up to 2 inches near Lake Charles and Black Browns Lake. And obviously that would be very, very significant. So let's get to the system here. The disturbance is currently parked over the Florida Panhandle, has a 50-50 chance of developing within the next 2 days, but it has an 80% chance of developing and becoming a tropical cyclone within the next 5 days. And of course, its main track is to the west, so we'll get to that in just a second. This is Invest 92L. And you can see this is the modeling here. You can see most of the models actually has this turning to more to the southwest for the next 48 hours, and then by 96th hour it lies somewhere in South Texas or South Central Louisiana, somewhere around those lines, somewhere in between those lines. We're not sure yet, but let's take a look at the GFS ensemble. Even more of a mess. You can see the GFS ensemble really doesn't know where this thing will go, but you can see the bottom line is much of Louisiana is clearly in the bullseye of this directly impacting their coast. So those of you in Louisiana, I think the main threat should be heavy rain, but we'll get to that in just a second. But let's take a look at the early intensity guidance. Now, most of these members actually has this becoming a tropical storm within the next 60 hours. Now, if this becomes a tropical storm, its name will be Barry. Its name will be Barry, but we can't ever rule out that this will become a hurricane. Although it's highly unlikely, it's still definitely not out of the question that it becomes a minimal hurricane. But we'll just have to wait and see how it behaves here with this pattern. So let's take a look at modeling. This is the 12Z run valid this afternoon at 4 o'clock local time. You can see it's a trough up to the north down here. It looks like a typical summer day. Hot, humid, mostly sunny skies with the chance of an afternoon storm or two. Highs in the upper 90s. Again, the same thing on Wednesday. Now on Thursday, a rare surface front drops into here, and that might actually enhance the chance. We might see a couple more storms around on Thursday, Thursday afternoon. But you can see, that main low, that low out in the Gulf, is still just to the south of Louisiana, eastern Louisiana actually. So we'll mention a chance of more chances of showers and storms on Thursday with highs in the upper 90s. And by Friday, we completely clear and stay dry, highs in the mid 90s again. Now this is Saturday. Now you can see the GFS has this system impacting near Lake Charles, the remnant, the low, actually landfalling near Lake Charles. And of course, now keep in mind, the main impact from these tropical storms are usually to the north and east of the centers of circulation, where that's where all heavy rain and gusty winds are, at least. So if this were to verify, much of North Texas would actually stay dry from this thing. And let's see what the European says. And European actually has this, I'd say around 75 to 100 miles further east than what the GFS is, but that's more of an agreement than what it was showing yesterday. So it's the confidence is starting to increase that Louisiana, the New Orleans area near Lake Charles will have the highest threat of maybe some gusty winds, but mostly in the form of heavy rain. You might see a brief tornado or two, or a water spout, once this thing is still in the water. And of course, what that means for North Texas is we continue to have a very dry weekend with highs in the low to mid 90s, of course. And of course, on Sunday, that once that reaches inland, as starts to fizzle out, still produces rain for the parts of the deep south, but that really starts to fizzle out. Highs would be in the low 90s for North Texas at this point. Now, keep in mind that this is still all out in the board. A lot of things can and will change. This system hasn't really developed yet. We'll get a better hand of where this thing will actually go once this fully develops. Now, let's go to Monday of next week. They still have moisture across the deep south still, but in North Texas we stay dry, highs in the low 90s. And it's a week from today, Tuesday the 16th of July. You can see we have ridging up to the north, and down here we'd actually stay dry as always. Again, maybe a storm or two during the afternoon, but highs in the mid 90s. Well, let's go out 10 days. This is Friday the 19th. You can see troughing to the west, ridging to the east, and down here that means we would stay dry. Let's take a look at our QPS from the European ensemble. It's really not really as widespread as in the deep south. Some of the members go up to an inch, but of course that will vary. Depends on where this tropical disturbance will go. And of course, with the numbers for the next 15 days, highs steadily increasing to the upper 90s by the end of this month, with lows mostly in the upper 70s to low 80s. Classic July weather. That's it for the Texas weather discussion video for today on More Notes in a Blog. The next video here will be posted at around noon tomorrow. If you can, catch your local TV stations on the air at 4, 5, 6, and 10 o'clock. Thanks for watching. Have a great day, and Godspeed.